was your favorite part of your whole mission?
Of my whole mission?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Or one of your favorites. I'm sure there were a
Well,
million.
we had a lot of some great things. I love Savai'i. I was on Savai'i for over half my mission. Well, over a year. It was a great place. When I was in, had some neat experiences where the Lord really miraculously blessed us, my companion and I, when I was in McKay, which is over in Savai'i there. And it's McKay is named after President McKay. Who came to Samoa. In reality, the village is Hiva over there, but it also includes the Sapali, where the church came to. The LMS church was the first Christian church came to Samoa, and that's where they arrived. But we had a sweet sister there. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Stevens, because you know, sometimes my assistants get stories about my former mission and my father's former mission, things like that. And so, but I don't know if I ever told you about Salafai Tuya. She was a high chief in Sapali. Her husband was, and then he passed away, and so she received the title. And she was something else, man. She would direct affairs while the tower was. She really had people flopping around there. She was a great bossy lady. She was president of the Awalofa. But that's a place where at that particular time we couldn't establish a church in Sapali because that's where the LMS, the London Missionary
There's
Society.
only one church permitted?
Yeah, there's only one church permitted at that particular time. Whoa, okay, I think we're stopping. All right.
There they go.
Sorry about that.
No.
Anyway, but she was great. When she was young, she had polio.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you this story?
Yeah. I don't think so.
But anyway, what happened? She had polio, and she could not walk. And her aunt, she was 8 years old when this happened. Her aunt was up in Hawaii and lived there, and President McKay was coming at that particular time. No, he's Elder McKay, I think, was visiting Hawaii, and he was going to do something over there with the stake or something, but or whatever. Anyways, they knew he was coming, and so they said, "You know, President McKay, Elder McKay, he has great spiritual power, and people all love him here in Samoa because he was the first apostle to ever come down through the South Pacific, 1921, and then later in 1955. And it was during that time anyway, long story short, I'll tell you what happens is they send her up to Hawaii to see her aunt. Her mother and she went up. They were hoping they could get him to give her a blessing. They knew if she got a blessing, she'd be healed for polio. And anyway, they got to the church, the stake center there, where he was going to speak. They were hoping to just kind of meet him somehow and then ask for a blessing. Well, it didn't work that way at all. And she could see that it wasn't going to happen. And she just prayed. She was sitting in the center aisle in the congregation there, right on the edge of the aisle. When he came in, he came over on the side door. But then, miraculously, she just prayed hard that Heavenly Father would help her shake hands. If she could just shake hands with him, she knew she'd be healed. So that's what happened. Anyway, he came in, and then he crossed over this crossover aisle, that it was in the back, but part way up from the back. He crossed over there and then started going down the center aisle, and he was coming towards her, and he was shaking hands with people on both sides. And then he turned to shake hands with people on the other side, just before he got to her, and she just focused her faith on him. He went down about 10 feet in front of her and just whirled around and looked straight at her and walked right back and shook her hand, and he said, "The Lord bless you, my dear." And when he did that, she was healed immediately.
Really?
Great lady, full of faith. Boy, and so she was able to walk from that point forward. It was great. She's a neat lady. She was president of the Relief Society over there in the McKay branch. That's where she'd go to church. Oh, it was wonderful anyway. But I was there for 6 months, my mission, so it was really fun. Now the boys that were just little when I was there, I just saw them yesterday at the temple. Now, Melchizedek priesthood is his name, or Melchizedek is his name. He's now the bishop at Tapawele. They just made bishop there. And that's where they all live, is up by Viola, the church school in Tapawele, which is an entire Mormon village up there. But they were just like a family to me. Their mother was just like a mother to me. So it was really neat. It was a great experience. She was a powerful lady. I really loved her. So that was one of my favorite areas. Oh gosh, you know how it is. Every area becomes your favorite while you're there. I'll show you another area when we go up this way, up by Falifa Falls. I was in Falifa for 4 months. That was a really beautiful area. Not the easiest work, but it was a good area. It was fun. But we baptized an older Matai while I was in McKay, back over to my Owapu was his name. He was a great man.
I have a question.
Yes.
And you don't have to be honest, but
I can lie about it. That'd be great. I'd be happy to tell you.
okay. When your father was your mission president, did
Yeah.
you get special treatment?
See, that's a good question. When Elder Monson came down and U.B. Brown, who was then a member of the First Presidency, they came together. That's when Elder Monson was kind of being trained as an apostle somewhat, so that's why Elder Brown came down with him, or President Brown, and that was in October of '65, and that's when they gave me my call to serve under my dad at that time. Well, when we talked, Elder Monson is the one that interviewed me for that.
Wow.
And he just said, "Now your call is to serve under your father. Do you have any problem with that?" And then he told me in front of my father, after he interviewed me and stuff, and he came back out and he just said, "Now you understand that you're not going to get special treatment as the son of the mission president. As a matter of fact, you probably may not ever become a leader in the mission because of the circumstances."
Right.
Because we don't want anybody to think, that the mission president is doing things with his son that he wouldn't have done with others. So my dad gave me no preferential treatment. As a matter of fact, he let my assistants, or his assistants, be the ones who decide where I went.
Oh, good.
He went overboard with that. I just called him President Price. He called me Elder Price. We got along great.
Oh, wow.
I love my dad. We were very close, and that was a special experience to be able to share that together.
That's really neat.
Over the years. Do you have any other imploring, difficult questions?
I don't know. I just think that's so cool that you got to serve under your father.
It really was a neat experience.
I mean, you don't hear of that very often.
No, you probably don't get many settings where that happens, but I've heard of other mission presidents where their children have sort of But what a great thing.
I bet that was good when you're sick and whatnot to have your mom take care of you.
Yeah, I never got homesick, needless to say. And there was one time where was I? Boy, it was cold. The temperatures really dropped. We got clear down to 60 degrees. One time.
Clear down to 60.
Boy, that's unheard of. To get down that low. But boy, next thing I knew, the zone leaders brought over a blanket.
Wow.
That's my mother. I was just watching over her. But she was the same with all the missionaries.
That's good.
She'd get upset, but she'd shake her little finger at them, You gotta be obedient and do the things I tell you to do. She's really fun.
Oh.
She's 93 now.
Wow.
Or will be this November.
Wow.
Special lady. And she had great faith. I remember she was really, really sick. One time I was being transferred, so I came through the mission home, and I went in there, and she was just so sick, and they were supposed to go to a zone conference over in Samoa. She says, I feel I've got to go. She said, can you give me a blessing?
And this is while you're on your mission?
Well, I was on my mission. And I told her that the Lord would bless her, and she did not need to worry, and that she would not need medication, and He would heal her as she traveled over there. So she didn't even take her pills. She just left them behind. She got better and better by the time we had the conference. She was well.
Good.
That's where you get it from, isn't it?
Yeah. There we go. Look,
that
something
one.
seems to be sitting out there still.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Being
That's a good
blessed.
thing. And the frisbee and the towel.
And the frisbee.
Excellent.
Hey,
Make sure we got everything important.
I was wondering where that frisbee was. Whose frisbee that was.
Oh, they're just laughing.
Well, as long as we're asking about mission stories, Sister Price, do you have any favorite memories looking back over the last? I know we're like recording everything. I don't know.
I love the mic.
Yeah. But
Hope
Sister
you don't
Price, is there
mind.
anything like you can look back on the last 2.5 or 2 3/4 years that you've been here?
Well, I think starting off with the temple dedication.
Oh, wait, was that finished during your guys' tenure?
Yeah, it was.
So we
I
came
wanted to come
and,
back, that's so
1
bad.
month after we were here, we started the open house. So we had 22 sister missionaries staying in the dorm for 3
Really?
weeks.
Oh my word.
Because they decided that they just wanted the sister missionaries to conduct tours.
Kind of like a Salt Lake thing.
Yeah.
And we used the elders to record the statistics of referrals and visitors and things during the day. And so it was really hectic time,
Thanks,
but
President.
really wonderful things happening. Just lots of stories.
How about is it?
Well, and then the night at Apia Park, and when President Monson and President Hinckley came in, and we kept asking, please let our missionaries come from Tutuila, even though it's going to cost money, a little more money. We had somebody donate some money and got the permission, and we put them on the boat, and they came all night, and some of them got sick. But
It's a 7-8 hour ride.
yeah.
Right.
But
They
we
were
got
able to
them
see
all
the
here,
prophet.
and so they were all at the park, and they all sat together in a big group, and then I asked Sister Fitzimani, who was over the program,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, isn't there somewhere that the missionaries could sing in part of that? And she came back to me and she said, I think if they would come in at this one spot, she had an arrangement of, firm as the mountains around us. And when they got to that part, we had the missionaries coming in on both sides of the track in front of the stand where President Hinckley and President Monson were sitting. And they came in starting to sing Firm as the Mountains Around Us. As we walked in, they immediately stood up. And it was so touching. And so we stood right in front of them and sang. We did all that, and then we sang, "We thank you, O God, for prophet."
About 6,000 people there.
And they stood the whole time. And it was just really incredible. And then that was the finish. And so then when they went to leave the stand, you know, President Hinckley did his typical waving with the handkerchief to all the missionaries and the people, and it was just amazing. And we were so grateful that all of the missionaries could be there and feel that. And so that was really a highlight. And then the day of the dedication, which was on Sunday, we were in the first dedicatory session in the celestial room, and we were sitting there, and in walks the architect and his wife, and we knew who they were because they came down on the flight with some of our family, because when his father passed away, we decided that we were all going to save money and come down for the dedication of the temple. And then we got our mission call, and our children said, well, we're still saving our money, we want to come down for it. So our whole family came down for that dedication. And the architect and his wife came down on the flight. Well, they were staying over in Sinaloa on the other side.
Right.
So when they were driving over to come to the dedication, they were hit head on. And a member was driving by and helped them and got him to the temple, and they walked in. And so when they walked in, his wife recognized me and came over and said, "We've been in this car accident, can you help us?"
Wow.
And so President Hinckley's personal physician, was there, and I was sitting next to the pilot for him, the private plane, and we talked to him, and they, got him a little help. They sat in the back of the celestial room, and he actually laid down his wife's lap during some of it because they were.
He was in a little bit of shock.
Yeah, he was, and she, I think, was trying to push on, with it, and anyway, we ended up taking care of them after, but they're okay. But it was really neat. But President Hinckley stood up, and it was like 15 or 20 minutes before it was supposed to start, and he looks in the celestial room and he says, "Well, I think everyone's here. Let's just begin." And so he started early, and he started it, and there was this lady by the name of Essay, and about 2 years before this time, her husband died, and I know she had a stroke. I know that's what happened to her because she couldn't walk or anything, and so she prayed to the Lord and asked if she dedicated all of her efforts in serving Him, if He would bless her so that she could walk. And so she would get up at 3 in the morning and get herself ready, and then she had a walker. She finally was able to use a walker, and she would use this walker and go down. She lived up on a hill, and she would come down this little dirt road using a walker, which would be really difficult to do, I think. And to get to the church so she could teach early morning seminary at 5 o'clock. So she did that, and then she still had children, and so she went over to a little primary school and taught there for a while, and then she was the State Relief Society president. She taught young women's. She worked in family history, and I really don't know how she did it all, but she did it. And so she was also in the celestial room that day, and she decided she knew that President Hinckley would not be able to give her a blessing. And so she decided to focus her faith on the prophet. And if she focused her faith on the prophet, she could be healed. And so she told me, she said, I never took my eyes off the prophet the whole dedicatory session. And when
Tai.
Yeah. So pretty amazing. Your faith is incredible.
Great lady. Sweet sister. Great.
So
This is probably on a less spiritual note, but since you were here for the South Pacific Games, did you see, I don't know, I guess any missionary opportunities that came maybe as a direct result of having Samoa host that?
yeah, because it was interesting because when they had the opening ceremony and they had the choir sing their theme music that they had with the dream, and they wanted to show off the volunteer uniforms, and that's when they lit the torch, start the torch run around Samoa. The only volunteers that were in the uniforms were all missionaries. And when they had it on the TV and everything, and when they came out, they went paraded in front of all the government officials and visitors that were there, and had them present some of the gifts to them, and walked all the way up around and encircled all these dignitaries. And I could hear people saying, "Who are these young people? Who are they?" You know, because they were so impressed by them. And there was one woman that did not want the missionaries to help in the VIP area. She just, I don't know, she just didn't feel like they could, you know, handle it correctly and do what she wanted them to do. But shortly into the games, when she saw how the missionaries conducted themselves and how they handled themselves with the people in the stands and everywhere, she started to request the missionaries to be the ones that worked with the VIPs, and that's who she wanted. And they also just wanted the missionaries, mostly missionaries, handling all the money at the different venues, because they knew they could trust, you know, the people, the missionaries handling the money. And I even had one of the doctors at the hospital tell me, he said, "Yeah," he said, "your missionaries did such a good job." He said, "I tried to go in, you know, and walk past, and they stopped me and said, 'Now, where's your ticket?' And he said, 'If it had been a Samoan or something, they would have let me go by.'" But he said, "I think that they made a lot more money because they were trying to help the people be honest." And it was really good. And so then a week into it, a lot of the other volunteers, pretty much, they had their name, their badge, so they could get into the venues and that for free, and they just quit doing their volunteer job. And it basically came down to mostly the missionaries running the venues. And there were some others, but
Yeah, but
for
we
the
had
most
to-
part, it was the missionaries, and they put in about 15-hour days.
Wow.
They were exhausted at the ends of the days, and sometimes they didn't get any food to eat until 10 at night. And they just were really good.
They're
And
real troopers.
they were, and they worked really hard, and people talked about it all over everywhere, and it did. I mean, people were asking about them, and they even got referrals for other countries from it too, where people were so impressed, and they didn't wear their name badge. But it's funny because on their ID tag that they wore, it said missionary on it, you know. But and so when it came time for the closing ceremonies, they wanted the missionaries out to march as part of the closing ceremony part. And they had some of the other volunteers too, but they start calling the head man over the volunteers, and they said, "Where are your missionaries? We need the missionaries up in the stands to help us." And he said, "You are not getting them. They are going to be out marching on the field. They deserve to be out there."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they did. They were the ones that went out on the field, and he said, "I wanted them to sit right up front," and he had them sitting right in front of the main stand where all the singing and everything was going on. And he just said, "I felt like they had really earned it," and he wanted them right there. And then after it was all over, he had a big meeting at Aggie Gray's for all the leaders, and then a huge barbecue for the other missionaries. And they gave all the leaders cameras, disposable cameras.
Well,
trying to say something negative about the church, and he said, you need to step back and learn more about that church because they are good people in that church, and the government has really appreciated, I think, even more from what all the missionaries did. And then after the games ended, the first week in September, they had an international weightlifting competition in November, and they wanted the missionaries to be the ones to be the volunteers to act as the host for that because of what they did, and so
We
it went
didn't
well.
do it though.
Because it meant a whole huge another commitment again. And you know,
I've been 2
the
weeks.
area presidency was worried about if the missionaries, after being at the games for 2 weeks like that, if they could pull it back together and go back and do their missionary work. And you know, they did. They really did a good job at pulling back, you know, and getting back to the work, and it was good.
It was excellent. It just coincided too with President Baxter being back. I mean, he was in Samoa at the very end, and so we had him do a fireside. He talked to the missionaries. I think that really helped a lot, and it was outstanding. Then we had some people that were baptized as a result of the games. Not a lot of people, but a handful anyway.
Cool.
They even had me on TV to tell about what was going on with all these volunteers.
Oh, you're famous.
Even brought down the group that when he was on a mission called the Elders. They went all over Samoa singing. They're the ones that wrote Masi Samoa and Koku
Yeah.
Samoa. They came back.
Oh, really?
Yes, we had them come down, and they did firesides, and they went to Savai'i and around Polu,
All the members loved it.
and they loved it, and they were on TV, and people started talking about them, and
Yeah, everyone
that was
knows.
really fun. And we had the Pesanga School do a special production showing how all the different islands, you know, we all come from the same heritage, and we're all children of our Heavenly Father. And it was really good. And we had people coming from all over the different countries that were here.
We gave out special invitations for them to come over and see it. Turned out really well anyway. It was great. The only thing that was sad is our public relations people didn't do anything with it. It was really so good.
They wanted to do, some people wanted it to be put on right down in front of the government building.
Yeah.
And
Some of the non-members
yeah,
who had come to it, who are from the parliament, they
Yeah.
were given the invitations to come as well, and some did. They were the ones that really wanted us to do it down in front. They said it was so powerful because we ended up with the different flags from all the different nations and everything else. It was just well
it was
done.
really, really well done.
We did a good job. You would have been pleased with the mission with that.
It was interesting because our first Sunday I think we were headed up to the hospital to see a missionary. And here was a man. I got out because I wanted to take a picture of all the flags that were lining along the line up on that road up towards Motuatua. And this man walks up to me and said, "Is there a church I can go to? Is there, you know," because he was Mormon, and he saw the tag, and I said, "Yeah, hop in the car and we'll take you over." And we took him over to Pesanga Fifth, you know, the English-speaking one. And so then we were telling, next thing, we were having a missionary fireside, so he brings a non-member. He was from Tokelau. So he brings a non-member, and then the whole Fijian basketball team was there to this missionary fireside, and we had several from the different countries at that fireside. That was really neat.
Some from the Cook Islands and places. That was really neat.
So, President Price, your father was a mission president in Samoa. You were a mission president in Samoa. You served here. what kind do you feel like a special connection, not necessarily just with missionary work, but like with the people and the culture, since you've just been around it so much?
Well, there's no doubt about that, Mallory, because I've grown up with Samoa. My father used to tell me stories. He'd seen some really miraculous things on his mission. Stories like it to the miracle of the fishes with the Savior, things of that nature, and healings and so forth. And so it's really a remarkable experience. So I'd grown up with all those kinds of stories, and so then we had Samoans in and out of our home when I was growing up, which was wonderful. And they'd come over and sing and dance and eat.
Back in the States?
Back in the States, when there were some around. So it was really fun. It was a great experience. So I feel like, yes, Samoa's always been a part of my life.
See, it's
Really,
the same for our children. This has been the same thing for our children, too.
Yeah.
'Cause then they
Well,
have
I
their
didn't get one of them here on
grandfather.
their mission. That was the only
Oh, did you?
No, I
Oh.
wish we had. 4 sons, I thought I had a chance at that. Especially our last son, Jared, he's got calves just like Samoans, man. We figured
Fit right in.
he's kind of a solid built young man. So, I was just teasing about his calves because they're so doggone big. They just look like Samoan calves, you know. They're stocky legs. But he didn't make it. He did end up in Samoa at the end of his mission, however.
Really? Where did he serve?
He served in New Jersey.
Okay.
And then just after we were called here, a month after we were called here, he came home from his mission, so the church sent him home, literally, to us.
His new
Here in
home.
Samoa, so he was here for about a month and a half, wasn't it?
Oh, that's fun.
After he got back. It was great. And our daughter had just finished her mission in Spain just a month before him. So she got here just a week after we arrived in Samoa. So see, our families had a lot of connection then, and an opportunity now to see Samoa. Boy, I tell you, it's been wonderful. Our second oldest son, our third oldest son, he's here now. He loves photography. He bought him he's got an underwater housing for his camera. He's taking some beautiful pictures of Samoa. Snorkeling.
Last time he was here, he took 7,000 pictures.
No way.
You're kidding
Yeah.
me.
This time, I think he's only done.
About half that, probably.
Yeah.
At this
And
point.
he's been here, this is his 4th time. So can you imagine how many
Oh
pictures
my
he's got?
goodness.
Yeah, if I could have found him a wife, he would have gotten married in the Samoan temple, he told us. That's where he wanted to get married. I said, well, that's a little hard for the in-laws, you know. So
Yeah.
But, yeah. So it was a great... But they all love Samoa, and we've got some good close friends that are Samoan, and Tongan back in the States as well, so... The answer is yes to your... It's a big, short answer, huh?
No, that's what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And this is kind of off topic, but I just want to know how you two met. I love
That's the
stories like
romantic
that.
in you. That's good. Okay.
Maybe, Sister
Sister
Price, do you want to
Price
tell this story?
Yeah, she'll tell the story. On that.
Well, it's kind of a funny story.
All right.
Is we were both going to the U, and I rode in a carpool with my sister that's here right now, and we with some friends, and they were all at the institute, and on between classes and that, and they met him, and he dated one or two of the girls in the carpool.
Don't ever do that, Orson. That's not good. Boy, they all talk about things. That's not good at all.
So I saw him between classes, the same dance class, the Latin American dance class together. And he would just line up all the guys and all the girls, and then he would zip it up. So that's who your dance partner was for the whole class period. So we both kept trying to figure it out so we could line up so we could end up. And it just never quite worked out.
Not very well.
Yeah.
Not enough times, that's for sure.
Anyway, we finally ended up being able to dance together, and then we started dating, and that's kind of how we met. But the dance instructor was gay, and I was standing behind him during one class, and he asked him to dance to show everybody.
So he could show the girls their steps.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
And he
my
turned
goodness,
so
that's
bright red.
embarrassing.
His ears were bright red. And I was just laughing so hard. The whole class was just, it was awful. And then after we got married and we had our first year anniversary, we decided to go to this restaurant. And he was the maitre d' at the restaurant.
No way.
So we told him, remember we were in your dance class, that's where we met, that. And so he was really...
Oh, he was nice. That boy, he just wined and dined us all night. He was the head waiter. So it was great.
How funny.
That's fun. So we don't have any, it's not a major thing.
But President Kimmel married us.
Oh.
And that was really neat, because when we were first married, we lived on Yale Avenue, and up on Yale Avenue, and there were about, 4 or 5 general authorities in that state. And they had like an orchestra that would play for prelude music, and I played in it.
Huh.
And I was sitting there, and in walks President Kimball, and he sits down on the bench, and I was right by the front bench, and he was the second bench back, straight across from me. So when we had a break for a minute, I went over and talked to him, and talked to him about, how he married us and everything. And then they all go up on the stand, and they just disbanded all the speakers that were, assigned for the conference, and we just had all the general authorities speak.
Wow.
Our conference went about 2.5 or 3 hours. It was really amazing.
It was. We were going to U. She was president of a sorority of the Lambda Delta Sigma, the LDS sorority for sisters there, and so that was really a fun part of that. So we had a lot of interactive time.
We were in Mormon youth. I played in the symphony, and he sang in the choir.
Wow.
So we really had fun. It was fun.
Everybody asleep yet?
We're just like afraid to record our own voices, I think.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all that. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us? Any more stories, adventures, or just...
We ask this question a lot. What do you think about, I guess the future of the church in Samoa? What do you think is going to help it grow the most? What do you think is going to maybe be the biggest hindrance, just in your own experiences in Samoa?
I think the church in Samoa has grown a lot. Since I was here 40 years ago, there's a lot more of the family bonding, doing things together now in Samoa than ever before. There's good things. That's because of the church and its influence on the family. It's having a marked influence with members of the church. Even still, we have men who beat their wives, their kids, and fathers and mothers who beat their children somewhat. But I don't think that's the majority in terms of heavy beating like that and abuse. I think what happens is that I think the church has had a powerful influence with that.
I've had because of working with the missionaries, I've close to one of the doctors in particular, the woman doctor, and one of our missionaries went to her. She used to work at the private hospital in Sen, and then she quit and started organizing her own clinic. And one of the missionaries went in her clinic one day and said, "Would you like to hear the lessons?" And she said, "Yes." And when I talked to her, she said, "I told him yes because of your church's teachings on the family. And also because I see all these missionaries keep coming and they get sick and they go through all these things, and yet they still keep coming and wanting to serve, because I'll take them in there and she'll say, well, you're going to have to be down for 4 or 5 days or this or that." And they'll go, "Oh no, I can't. I need to get back. I need to." And she's seeing this, how the missionaries want to get back to their area and they want to do the work even though they're sick. And she keeps seeing that over and over. And it's impressed her so much. And so she started having the lessons, and it was moving along slowly because she comes from Leova'a, the very Catholic village. And anyway, so then she and her husband went to Rome at Christmas time, and that put her back several steps. But then about a month ago, I started to talk to her, and she just opened up to me. She says, we talked about abuse in Samoa, and we talked about, I said, the people in our church are not perfect, but we are trying to teach them, I tried to tell her how we're trying to teach them to be kind and loving and that. And I talked to her about the temple and our sacrament meetings and everything. And she says, when I go with my husband to church, to be honest with you, I don't feel any closer to God. And so we're just making these little steps forward with her, and I'm so excited because she is a Mormon and she does not know it. She is wonderful.
She really is. Her husband's a good man too.
Yeah, he's the minister of agriculture right now, and he's bent over backwards to help us with the missionaries to do some things. And they've just been really great. And it's just little things like that. That just little by little. People are seeing things. This Chinese family that Stark attracted into, and that they were doing some CDs for the Chinese community, and they showed me that they were showing highlights of Samoa, and right on the cover they wanted the Mormon temple. And so, and when people find out that it's all paid for, and that when it was paid by tithing only 10%, and they're paying 40 to 50% in their villages for their churches, and that, they're blown away, and they can't believe it. And it opens up a lot of discussions with people. So there's a girl by the name of Falilua in Tonga, and the missionary started to teach her, and she went to her father and told him, she said, "I want to be baptized," and he said, "If you get baptized, I will beat you." and she got baptized, and he beat her. And so then her brother got the lessons, and he went to him and said, "I want to be baptized." And he said, "If you get baptized, I'll kill you." And so he didn't get baptized. And then it came time for the open house of the temple, and she said they were handing out open house tickets, and she wanted some to take her father to the temple. And they were all frightened for her, what he would do to her. And she said, "It's all right. I'm going to fast, and I'm going to pray, and he will come to the temple with me." And he did. And he didn't just go once. He went 3 times to the open house with her.
Wow.
And then she went to him and she said, "I want to go on a mission." And he finally talked to the president. He said, "This girl is different than my other children." And she's serving the Philippines right now.
Now, on your way to Whanganui, you might as well stop here and see these beautiful falls.
Oh,
here
my
at Falls
God.
Fall. Oh, they're all out bathing and
Did you see
swimming.
how low it is?
Yeah, it is low. I hope they're going to see the falls here. Should be a little bit.
I've never
This
seen
is where
it that low.
I stayed for 4 months of my mission in this area. This is a beautiful area. I thought we'd just turn around here and you could look down here maybe and see it. Well,
Oh my
maybe I won't
word.
run off the road either.